break, we were talking about dissolutions, and I guess I sort of raised a question about children, and you say it didn't necessarily have to be adversarial. So let's talk about that.
Okay. I think that my job, I know, my job, and a lot of other attorneys know this as well, you're more than just an attorney, you're a counselor. So when it comes to a party, even sometimes if they're represented by counsel, you have to go to their counsel to make them understand that this is not your life. This is the life of that person and these little kids. And the little kids, in my opinion, are the most important thing in this process. So if you're able to help them to understand that, then you become more of a counselor to them. So you are not only just their attorney, but you're their counselor. And you can talk to them about the repercussions. There are many repercussions when it comes to fighting over your children. And it does not affect you as the adult. It affects that little person.
So
That's who gets hurt.
Right. And so, to the extent possible, you want to make it as amicable as possible.
Absolutely.
When a dissolution has been deemed the only thing that they want. Let's talk about wills and trusts.
Okay.
What? Why a will or and not a trust? Explain that.
I prefer both.
Okay.
Okay. Now, a will is you're basically telling someone what your last wishes are going to be. We both know here or maybe you don't. Here in California, you can have what's called a holographic will, or you can have the standard.
Now, what is a holographic will?
A holographic will is where I'm sitting here at my table and I write down and you really have to specifically state what your requests are. I state all of those requests in my own handwriting and I sign it and I date it. That's perfectly acceptable.
And you need no witnesses or anything.
You don't need witnesses for that.
Just write down.
It has to be in your own handwriting. And
handwriting.
And it has to communicate really well what your wishes
you want
are.
your property to happen.
Right.
So that's just a basic, simple thing. If nothing else, if you feel as though you're unprotected and you got property and therefore I can't get to a person to do me a real will, I'm just going to dot something down.
And sign it.
And sign
date
it. And date it. And that's legitimate.
In California, yes.
In California, okay. All right, now let's get into the complex stuff, the wills and the trusts.
Okay, when you talk about a standard will, that has to be witnessed by two witnesses, and you can attach what I talked about, the holographic information, to a standard will. In a standard will, you can go to a stationery store or any store that you could buy something that's already prepared. You can buy them online. It has a standard language.
Well, I've seen a lot of them online.
Yes, you can buy it by state. So with that, you've still got to be somewhat specific about things, because in the standard will, that means that you're going to be communicating more than likely to more than one person. With the holographic will, it's probably just to your son or your daughter, and you're not worried about anybody else coming back in to challenge what's happening. So you can easily show what their handwriting was, a mother or dad, and that they dated it and that they did write the document. Now, in a standard will, there are normally sure to be challenges if you're giving it to more than one person. That's where the problem begins.
When you say giving it, what do you mean?
Properties.
Oh, giving,
jewelry,
when you're dividing your property among more than one person.
Yes. There are some people who don't necessarily want to get grandma's ruby necklace. They want the necklace and the property. You know?
Well, there's some just greedy.
Absolutely.
They didn't work for it, so they want it all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
and how do you guard against that?
I think the trust is what you really want. You want those two together. What I do is like a power of attorney for health, power of attorney for assets, your will, and your trust. So each document not the powers of attorneys, but the will and the trust support each other. So
how is that?
Well, you're telling someone what you want to do in your will, and that you want this to go to all these different people. Well, in the trust, you're doing the same thing, but you're becoming more specific about what it is. Except, for example, you can't just say that you can say it, but I wouldn't recommend it. That piece of property by the tree on 35th Street. You want that piece of property by the what kind of tree on 35th Street, and what's the APN? What's the legal description of that property? You want to be specific, because the tree may be worth more than the house on 35th Street. So you just want to be more specific. So that's what you're doing in both of those documents.
And what would you recommend in terms of a trust and a will? You are what would be your recommendation?
Both.
Both together.
Yes, both.
Okay. And are there any particular things that a person ought to be aware of concerning a will or trust? Things that they need to look out for? I often hear people say, if you contest this, you get $1. What's that all about?
A lot of people do incorporate that language into it, but regardless, they are going to contest it anyway.
If a person is determined to contest, they're going to contest whether you say $1 or not.
I've never seen anyone who contested just get $1. It somehow has a way of working itself out in the end.
And that's because
there's supporting documents
that
are there. And if you want to go to a court of law, what does a court of law want to see? They want to see supporting documents, documents that are clear, documents that are concise, documents where if you contest it, you're not too likely to prevail.
And what about going to probate court? Matter of fact, we got to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about probate court and how that may work. So don't touch that remote. Put it down. We will be right back. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris. I'm your host, and my guest is Akele Atkins, attorney at law. We will be right back.